Hang in there, that Smylie Kaufman for 61. Wow.
I'm Smylie Kaufman, and this is The Smylie Show.
Welcome back to another episode of The Smylie Show. And Smylie, this is one I'm fired up about because we just got maybe the best Sunday leaderboard we've had all season long. It was not in a major. It was not in a PGA Tour event. It was in the Olympics. Just a fantastic, even though it was a limited field sort of situation, fantastic set of names at the top of the leaderboard. I'm Charlie Hume. He is, of course, Smylie Kaufman. I'm on the road visiting the in-laws, joining you from my father-in-law's basement bar here. I could just tap you a beer right here behind me if you're watching on YouTube, should you like that. Lots to get to because, many of you might have seen that I shot 66, no big deal, post that on Instagram this weekend. And I just backed it up today with a cool 83. So we are all the way back, and we will, if we have time at the end of this episode, we will get into the 66 or the 83, really whichever direction Smylie wants to go. But the place where we must start this episode is another Scottie Scheffler win this year. We came off last week talking about where we stand in the whole Xander Scottie Player of the Year race, and this feels like it's almost put to bed with Scottie winning gold and really kind of taking the reins on Sunday. So, Smylie, let's just start there. We were both watching this. We were texting the entire day. Scottie makes this charge on the back nine to shoot 62 to win a gold medal. How did Scottie get it done today?
Man, it's a great question because when I think most of America on the East Coast or Central Time, they woke up and they see the leaderboard and they see Jon Rahm as at 20 under par. He's got a 4-shot lead. And you're like, all right, I'll go turn it on just to kind of see how well he's actually playing and see if anybody, tries to make it somewhat interesting. And then within 20, 30 minutes, this thing just got as juicy as any golf tournament that we have had this entire year outside of maybe the US Open, because this leaderboard, like you said, it was epic. From you just look down from the first place all the way down to 15th place. It just, it was so packed in because the scoring was so low, soft greens, no wind, but still a golf course that was very penal if you were offline or you mishit shots. So bogeys and doubles were in play, which I think if you're a viewer, this was the epitome of what you want to watch, because you got birdies flying everywhere. You got an awesome leaderboard. You have these names that you're excited to watch, but also you see guys getting penalized when they do hit bad shots. So a really fun morning to watch golf. Scottie Scheffler obviously going out and shooting a 62. He's at 10 under par to start the day. Xander Schauffele at 14 under. I believe it was Jon Rahm was at 13, and then Tommy Fleetwood was at 14. I don't know if I flip-flopped these two, but
I believe we had Xander and Rahm at 14 to begin the day.
Okay.
Scottie at 10, Tommy at 13.
There you go. Well, it was such an interesting round, right? Because, with Jon Rahm, he's a guy that, he hasn't had too many rounds where you just feel like when he gets the lead, he goes and finishes out the job. So I think that was, a lot of people's first impressions when they turned it on. They're like, oh, this is kind of weird. Is Rahm going to blow this? And next thing you know, it's like Scottie is just kind of surging, and it kind of, you really felt it after he got up and down on 14 left in this like heavy rough that we saw multiple players get into, and Hideki was one of them who ended up winning the bronze. And then Jon Rahm, after he bogeyed the 11th hole, he bogeys the 12th hole, misses their fairway at 14, a hole in which is a par 5 that most of the guys, Charlie, have been birdieing this hole. And Jon Rahm's got 7-iron this green. He hooks it left, hits it into that left rough, chips it short of the green, chips it up, makes double bogey. Meanwhile, Scottie up on the same hill hits this beautiful, from this terrible looking lie, bump shot into the hill to a foot, makes birdie. And that was kind of the start of it from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think that 14th hole is where it all turns, right? I mean,
Yep.
I think that you've listed so many things there that I think are worth digging into. The drama of this course. I mean, I was trying to not be too much of a prisoner of the moment and saying, wow, this is really producing some top tier, high end, low end moments, and just keeping guys in the mix with the opportunities to make birdie, but also there are a lot of holes where you can make some big numbers, as you noted. But, and I think I want to get into the course. I want to get into the event. I want to unpack I mean, as a guy who picked John Rahm in a one and done this week and was on the cusp of 5 wins this season and a gold medal and was just ready to kind of fly the banner for my impeccable picking, that was a heartbreaker. I want to get into how that all collapsed for him. But to continue on the Scottie theme, talking a little bit about him in final rounds this year, because I know this is something that you're really interested in. To me, the comparison I kept drawing in my own head was what happened at the Players' Championship, where he comes into the day, he's 5 shots off Xander, he's 4 shots off Wyndham, and he just starts creeping on the back 9, making birdie after birdie, just kind of catching up. And obviously, I mean, I think for that to work out, you have to have guys at the top of the leaderboard who are giving shots away or just not, making more birdies and kind of creeping back into it. But it just, he has this, I don't want to call it Tiger-esque yet, because so many times we've drawn these Tiger-Scottie comparisons, and Tiger's, stats are just otherworldly when you look at what he was doing in his prime. But it's just that sense of Scottie's out there, he's got some momentum, he's making some birdies. Maybe I'm getting a little bit nervous if I have a lead, and lo and behold, here he is, making birdies coming down the stretch, and he's got the number posted that everyone needs to chase, and they can't make it there. So a little bit of, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on Scottie in final rounds this year.
Well, I think Tiger-esque, the way you frame that, I think the way I see it is that he has an elite awareness right now of what it's going to take on a Sunday. And he's proven it multiple times this year to win from behind. He's won with being a part of the mix and be able to separate, but he's also, understood when he's out in front, hey, this is what we watched Tiger do as kids, right? When he got the lead, it was game over. And Scottie's proven that he's been able to do that this year. And Jack Nicklaus, all the greats have been really great at understanding exactly what a good score is that day. And I just wanted to dig in a little bit into final rounds for Scottie Scheffler this year and weeks that he has won. And what started Bay Hill, final round 66, it was the lowest score by 2 shots. Players is 64. You already mentioned it. That was a 4-horse race. And then the Masters 68. That was the lowest round that day. I don't think we talk about that. He actually got crystal for the lowest score when he's out in front. So that's another one to consider for, being out in front or being really in the mix too that day. There was a lot of guys kind of around it, but he was able to go out and shoot a 68. Hilton Head I thought was interesting too, because that was a really weird day. A lot of starts and stops. I had to go out and finish on Monday. Shot a 68 that day, but if you go and look at the leaderboard, you'll see that, he didn't really go as low as quite as other guys, but other guys were able to finish before the storms came. He came out that next day in a north wind. It's blowing 20, 30 miles an hour. It's like 15 to 20 degrees colder. So that was a very, I would say a tough one to kind of for a leader. It's easy to get out in front of yourself, and Scottie was able to keep one foot in front of the other, sleep on a weird type of Sunday, finish on a Monday, and still go out and win. Memorial, I think, is a great example of what we watch Tiger and the greats do, is get a lead, get out in front, and on a really hard golf course like the Memorial was, which is, I think, maybe the hardest golf course we saw this entire year, out on a Sunday where the scoring average was close to 74, 75, 76. He goes out and shoots 74, and it was enough to win by a shot over Colin Morikawa. A Travelers Championship. This is now we're starting to get into, okay, he's won on every test. You got Bay Hill, which is a firm golf course, so you got to be so dialed in. He was so good that day. Players in a coming from behind fashion. Masters, everything on the line, but he's got chasers and a really tough golf course. Hilton Head was crazy. Memorial was hard, but Travelers, this is the one I think was almost the most impressive to show what type of range that Scottie has now, which is this golf course, everybody was shooting the lights out of it. He shot 65 or 64 every single day. And on Sunday, he shoots a 65. And honestly, he made the putts that we felt like he wasn't going to be able to keep up and make on a Sunday. So that was impressive from him. And then let's look at the Olympics, which we just saw today, and a final round 62, a 29 on the back 9. And now you look at that, all of that I just talked about, and all of his wins this year, and you're like, you know what? He's proven that he can do it in all ways.
That race for the Cy Young, pretty much as equally compelling and intriguing as the race for the wild card spots in the National League.
And also keep in mind, this team doesn't pitch the entire season, so his ERA gets affected much, much more if he has a poor outing than, let's just say, Chris Sale or Zach Wheeler that's been there all season long. This would be a fun one to watch it play out, but the big loser last night were the Phillies and Zach Wheeler.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup? What you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
The silver and the bronze. I give you Canada, France, Germany, Serbia, and Australia.
Germany, more so than Canada. I think that their talent, it's a little more tiered. You know what Dennis Schroeder's capable of. Franz Wagner, another player. Daniel Tice steps up, and Mo Wagner as well. They're built to really take advantage of the mistakes that Team USA makes, and they can make the effort plays.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
However many units are on the line, however many people, however many cocktails, like it's a perfect scorecard. And someone questioned him on one hole. He's like, well, one thing I never get wrong is the scorecard. And then we're on like 13 and he's added up and he's like, this is wrong.
I looked back from number 13 and I'm like, I'm missing $140 somewhere. I don't know where I'm missing it. And I'm looking back and I'm like, no, yeah, it doesn't match up on 11. And I got to track it back to like number 7.
Only on SportsGrid.
Shifting over now to that final group of John Rahm, Xander Schauffele, Tommy Fleetwood. I mean, you and I have a shared note where we kind of jot down our observations and kind of formulate what we're going to talk about when we recap tournaments at the end of the day. And I was taking a victory lap very early of like, hey, how are we evaluating John Rahm's season now that he didn't do well in any majors, had to withdraw from one, but he's got a gold medal and, you know, he can still win the LIV individual championship. Like, can we call this a success? And that was probably around maybe the 11th, 12th, 13th hole. Mm-hmm. He did not even end up on the podium. Just makes double at 14. A really spectacular implosion. And yeah, Scottie had to go out and do what he did on that back nine to go out and win it. But this season for John Rahm doesn't make any sense at all to me. And yeah, of course he could go out and win an individual championship on LIV, win a team championship on LIV, and look back and say there was some degree of success that was had. But I just wonder what stock you take after another near miss, and one where he was in the driver's seat, and we expect him in those situations to finish those things out. That's his, MO. Like these are situations where he thrives.
Oh, totally. And he's going to get scrutinized more now that he's made the jump to LIV. So any situation where, if John, like he did today, was not able to close it out, it's going to, people are always just going to say, you know what, if he had more reps of closing out tournaments that matter, then he would have closed this one out. I don't know if I look at it from that lens quite as much as other people, because he is getting reps, he is playing golf, but is it to the level of what it was like today? I don't know. I think it was just a little bit of nerves, to be honest. I think he got a little out in front of himself. The chip shot, I think, on the 12th hole was just uncharacteristic. It was not a very difficult looking shot. D-cell, not committed. And then the 14th hole looks like just a bit of an error with the 7-iron, not leaving it out to the right, going and making par. I think got a little too aggressive, and then missing a putt, it's a 3.5 footer for a bogey. I know he probably was fuming at that point before he even missed, but you still got to make sure you make that putt to where, you give yourself an opportunity to find yourself on the medal stand. And what's kind of crazy when you look at the final 8 holes of Scottie's day and John Rahm's day is that Scottie beat John Rahm by 10 shots on the last 8 holes. That is alarming. I mean, I know anything can happen on this back nine, but it was probably the easiest that golf course is ever going to play. It's soft greens, no wind. It's it's very challenging. Like, you have to hit really good shots, but still, for Jon Rahm, who's already played, he's got 9 more holes left in the tank, and all he's got to do is just not blow up pretty much, and you're going to be right there. It's very shocking to see, especially, I think not winning is a whole one thing, but not ending up on the medal stand was something that was absolutely shocking from when I turned the TV on to when the golf tournament was over.
Yeah, it is. When you put it like that, he beat him by 10 shots on that back 9. It's inexplicable. I mean, especially it'd be one thing if, we saw a brilliant finish from Victor Perez today, but let's say there's someone who's playing in front of their home crowd and feeling that emotion too, and carrying a lead, and maybe hasn't won a major or a huge event. And that's a different sort of thing. For Rahm, we've seen him there multiple times. We've seen him close and finish it. So that was shocking in a lot of ways. And I don't know. I think it's one of those seasons where you're going to kind of round up with your team and take stock and say, how do we do it a lot different next year? Because this was supposed to be a sort of breakout. I'm now the face of LIV. I'm going to, contend in some majors, maybe win a major, and really kind of make my stamp in this new league. And we really haven't seen that in the commingled events, at least this year. Another one in that final group where you're talking about back 9 scoring. I think Xander shot either a 38 or a 39 on the back and finishes 2 over for the day. 12 over for the tournament, 12 under, for the tournament, also not on the medal stand from a guy that was playing in that final group. And in a similar vein, in our shared note, we were talking about Scottie Xander Player of the Year. How does this change if Xander wins silver and Scottie doesn't medal? Is there an argument to be made there if Xander goes out and plays well in the playoffs, plays well at East Lake, maybe wins the FedEx Cup? Does he have an argument? And I'm not saying he can't still go out and play well in those events, but after watching that sort of reversal of fates on the back 9 in the Olympics, I just wonder what to make of the day for Xander when it's really right now, it's him and Scottie. I mean, these are the 2 guys that are the elites in pro golf right now. And it was just kind of wild to see a guy like that do what he did on that back 9 today.
I think that's you frame that perfectly, because it is the 2 guys that you kind of think about. You think about, Scottie obviously is the alpha dog, but in that final group, you look to Rahm and you look to Xander Schauffele to having really good days. And so it was really surprising, right? We already talked about Jon Rahm, but Xander wasn't that much better. He was 4 over his final 7 holes, which they're very uncomfortable golf holes. Let's not make it out to be these simple, easy shots. I mean, they were, it's not easy, but guys of their caliber can make it look very easy. And there were 2 shots for Xander that let him down on the back 9. And it was a iron shot that he hit in the water out of the left rough. I believe it was on the 13th hole. And so he makes a bogey. I believe it was a bogey there. It was actually kind of hard to follow Xander on the back 9. They weren't showing him a whole lot. So I'm doing all this based on just memory here. But with Xander also, I mean, I was told that he hit it in the water as well on the 15th hole with an iron. So he hit 2 iron shots in the water, one being from the rough. And I assume the other one was from the fairway, even though I didn't see it. So that to me is, for Xander, he was right there, right? He was at 16 under par. He was only, 3 shots back heading into that back 9, and just not really, just not really showing up on that back 9. Maybe it's just a little bit of, maybe just a little tired. I don't know. Just some days you don't have it. Maybe today was one of those days he didn't have it. We're definitely not going to question Xander's ability to close, because guess what? We just saw that a couple of weeks ago at the Open Championship, closing on a Sunday where, exactly like today, where Scottie just went out and he was the best, just proved that he was the best golfer in the world. And Xander showed that a couple of weeks ago that he also can contend with that notion that he can be the best player in the world.
It's interesting. There's maybe more forgiveness right now for a guy like Xander with his resume this year than a guy like Jon Rahm, who we're just waiting for him to do something or anything this year in a big event. And he's coming down the stretch here and you're thinking, this could be it. Like, this could be him making an impact this season. He gives it away in the fashion that he did, even though he played relative to Xander better than Xander today.
recently, I feel like I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not making bad swings. I don't feel like I'm making terrible decisions, and just had got a little bit of a streak of bad luck on par fives. Didn't birdie any of them at the Open, didn't birdie any of them today. It's just, and I didn't feel like I did anything terribly wrong, right? But that's just golf. It happens. What's done is done, and this week is the most important week of the year right now.
If he lands it pin high, he's going to be off over the pin position and leave himself a tough putt there. That should bite now. He didn't like it by the looks of it, but he'll love it when he sees it.
Just get this before that bunker. Put himself in a good position.
Just a tiny little baby fade, ideally placed.
To tie the lead at 16.
Oh, he's playing well, isn't he, John Rahm?
And OMG, what a championship Sunday we just witnessed.
Win, right? So obviously you always want to get that done, but you don't want to see a teammate and a good friend, missing a putt for that happening for me.
The Live Golf League delivers every single event, doesn't it? I mean, what an incredible finish there. You know what, Tyrrell Hatton, I feel for him. He's been playing beautiful golf. In fact, since Miami, he's been the best player in our league based on the strokes gained metric.
I'm really happy that I had my first Live Golf win. Now that Kelly and the kids are watching, just knowing that I'm bringing the trophy home for them, it feels good to say that it's coming home.
The third guy in that group, Tommy Fleetwood, who ends up on the podium with silver. I kind of want to play it forward a little bit with Tommy in a way, because he has a great day today, shoots 66, the guy that played the best in that final grouping. I remember a couple years ago when Will Zalatoris had a couple of near misses at majors and in big events, and we were just wondering, when is Will Zalatoris going to win a tour event for the first time? And I look at Tommy playing great here, ending up on the podium, having a lot of confidence, rolling into the FedEx Cup playoffs. I'm curious, do you think this is, in the same fashion that Will Zalatoris goes out and wins the FedEx St. Jude a couple years ago? Now he has all the back issues on the back end of that. That's separate. But just, do you think this sets Tommy up to maybe go out, play well in the playoffs, win one of these events? And do you like him at, better at TPC Southwind, Castle Pines, or East Lake, than another venue?
I haven't probably dug into that enough. I mean, I feel like when you're playing good golf, it doesn't really matter where you're playing. The scores are gonna show up. And Tommy is really, the Olympics this week and how well he's played at this golf course at Le Golf National. I mean, should be Tommy. He should try to get a residence there, or at least get a pro membership, because he plays this golf course so well. If you remember, Molinari and him were just dominating there back in 2018 at that Ryder Cup. But we talk about him this week, and you kind of refer to him just some near misses, kind of like Will Zalatoris. I went back and just wanted to check to see Tommy Fleetwood's history just in majors, because I knew there was a bunch, and I wanted to see how many there were. And it surprised me that he's had 7 top 5s in majors, and then you throw in the second place here, or silver medal here at the Olympics. You just look at, man, these are so many big events that he's given himself opportunities on the back nine, and whether it's not being able to capitalize or have a day like today where Tommy, even in the press conference after, is just like, I played good. When you go out there and make 8 birdies, and he did make 3 bogeys, but still, Scottie Scheffler went out and won the golf tournament, and really it just came down to the 17th hole, which turned out to be a 2-shot swing. They're both in the left rough, similar shots. Scottie Scheffler was able to land on the front of the green, give himself 20 feet, and Tommy Fleetwood from the same position hits a good shot, just came in flatter with less spin, rolls over the back of the green. It was not up against the collar, but enough to where he was thinking about it. I thought the pitch that he hit was very poor. I thought he could have done much better from there. Misses the putt, hit a good putt, just broke more than he thought, makes bogey, and there's the 2-shot swing that I think inevitably decided who won the gold medal.
And then the third guy on the podium, of course, today, we talked Scottie, we talked Tommy, Hideki Matsuyama, who I believe shot 65 today. I think really Hideki, the story of his week was he was kind of done in by a rough performance on Saturday because he was leading after 2 days and just had a rough round, and then goes out and plays great again on Sunday. Where are we at on him? We saw him win the Genesis earlier this year that we were just talking about with Xander and Cantley in that final group. And a guy who's finding some form heading into FedEx Cup playoffs. Like, is this a guy that could be hunting coming into playoff season?
Oh yeah, totally so. And I think Hideki this year, it's been a bit of a resurgence. I feel like, because I feel like maybe the prior couple of years, I just didn't feel like Hideki was the same guy. And this year, I think it was a wake up call. Being able to turn the TV off with 45 minutes left in the Genesis broadcast, because Hideki just put on an absolute clinic at Riviera. So actually, let's bookmark that for 4 years for when the Olympics is at Riviera, that Hideki's had some success there, winning at Genesis this year. But he's had a year. He's had 6 top 10s. I think from watching him over the last couple of years, I'm just constantly blown away at how good his short game is around the greens. His pitching, his bunker game, it's on another level, and it's really been as good as it's ever been in his career this year. And not that was an X factor of why he got the bronze medal this year, because I actually think his iron game is what's really come back. We're so known for him, these iron shots where he just doesn't like them, and you're like, oh, guys, in the water, is in the bunker, and it's like 10 feet. And that's the Hideki that we grew up watching and that we have come to love, because he's a monster when he gets rolling, especially for him. He seems to me to be a guy that when he gets a hot putter, and that ball striking's there, and how good his short game can be. He's not the longest player in the world, but he's also very much past tour average, and then he's also somewhat accurate with that driver's too. So if he's able to put the ball in the fairway, give himself opportunities, and he was able to do that this week. But you mentioned Charlie, that Saturday wasn't his best. And I think back to Tokyo, where he had an opportunity to win a gold medal there, and he is Japan, like golf. Hideki Matsuyama, he is the superstar, he is the guy. So all that pressure, and then getting in that crazy playoff for the bronze medal, doesn't end up winning. So he's got the feeling of I want to win a medal at the Olympics, and does that this year with having to avoid a playoff, not having to have to sweat out another playoff, and he's able to take a medal back home to his home country, Japan.
What has happened? What has transpired here at the First Bank Center here in Denver, Colorado? It wasn't just a big night of fights. It was a big night of memorable moments. Conor McGregor with us here in Denver, Colorado. Good left hand from Ron Paul. Right hand right back from Mike Perry. Can I get a face-off with Conor McGregor, man?
It's an incredible setup here, incredible matchmaking, incredible storytelling. Oh, you had to come here. All these fighters that step in here are warriors, and all have my respect. And I'm into this game, yeah, we'll be into this, yeah.
And we are live here in the Maverick Center here in Salt Lake City. What a night it is going to be. Historic indeed for BKFC 56. Whoever's the king of violence right here, this is going to be a great fight. Early on the turn. Right hand from Perry, double jump. Who's the king of violence? I am!
Combat fighting in its purest form, bare knuckle fighting in the city of angels.
80 seconds.
We've got the biggest announcement in the BKFC history we're about to make, so let's make that announcement.
What's up, Knucklemania? The notorious Conor McGregor here. Ladies and gentlemen, the huge announcement that I have for you today. Conor McGregor, myself, and McGregor Sports and Entertainment is now an owner of Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. Welcome to the big leagues. David Feldman, baby, we did it.
He's now an owner of BKFC with us, and we're going to take this motherfucking thing all the way to the top now.
to zoom out a little bit, big picture on Olympics, because we, you tweeted about this a bunch. We tweeted this from the show account. Like, looking at this leaderboard last night, looking in the early stages today of just the way it was developing, arguably the best Sunday leaderboard we've seen all year long. And
great.
even moving to the back nine, all the movement and the action we were seeing, it was just compelling across the board. Every time you were cutting to a different shot, that shot had weight, and it was a player that you knew. Like, there was brand value across the board. It was super compelling, thrilling stuff. I want to talk about that for sure. But the place my mind went first was, man, we criticized so much, maybe not criticized, but just we looked at all the PGA Tour signature events this year with limited fields. And our gripe was, you get these leaderboards where there's nobody at the top contending. Look no further than Rory pulling away at the Wells Fargo from Xander. And it's just that the field's too thin to have a good chasing pack at the top. And it's like, this was the best case scenario of that, a very limited field, yet the top 10, even down to 15, were all guys you'd heard of and all guys that had a real chance to win this tournament.
And maybe this is what signature events, or maybe a smaller tour, can be like, where you have leaderboards like this more consistently. I think you've seen bits and pieces of what it could look like with signature events. Have the Sundays gone the way the tour wants, or the networks want, or the fans want? Probably not. You've had some runaways, like you mentioned with Rory, or a day like Bay Hill this year, where you had this awesome leaderboard, and Scottie's like, "All right, see ya. Y'all go hit balls on the back nine, because this thing's over."
Maybe that's the fix. Is if Scottie's in contention on Saturday, we just dock him like 5 shots. And we make him come from behind. We have like a gross flight and we have a net flight, and we start Scottie. It's like, hey,
Monopoly,
Scottie, you can win the gross, but like the net's still in
squares. Oh man, yeah, it was. Golly, I think signature events. I think they can be exactly like they were today. It was 60 man field, and shoot, that's all the Scottie's won this year. I think all of his events he's won are signature events. So he's the last full field event, I guess, that he has won is, man, that our stats department really needs to get hard to work, because I don't really know where it was. Probably Phoenix.
I was going to say Phoenix last year, probably.
Phoenix last year.
Yeah.
Because was it a signature event last year? It was.
Oh, it was a signature, but were they doing limited last year, or was it just, did they? Because, golly, now I really got to go back and look.
Oh, you know what? I think it may have been that would be.
I think it may have been listed as a signature or a designated event, is what they're calling it last year. But they were not limiting the fields plus guys.
Yeah. Okay, so it had been Phoenix last year, but Scottie's obviously proven he can beat the best of the best, and I think this event was just incredible. I am one for really being hard on the Olympics just over the last 3 years. I really feel like I've been banging the drum, like, the Olympics and golf. I'm not there yet. Tokyo, it was on in the middle of the night. We're watching the re-air later in the day. It just didn't have the same juice. It's also in Tokyo. The crowds were not the same because of, I believe it was around COVID or after COVID, to where it was limited
supposed
attendance.
to happen in 2020, and then they moved it to 2021, but still obviously not
still
full,
limited. It's not the same, right? So I think just the buzz that this place had this week. There's 30,000 people a day, and I just felt like, all right, if the Olympics in golf is going to work, 72 hole stroke play event, we do that every single week. Maybe we should look at a team type deal with whether it's mixed with male and female, or match play, something to make us interested, because I just really struggled with 72 holes actually being, the way for the Olympics golf for people to care. But after finishing what I felt like was the best viewing event of the year, to me, it had the feeling of, this means a lot to these guys. And the only other event that you can maybe compare it to is the one that they're also not playing for money. They're paying for their country, or, for the Ryder Cup purposes, they're playing for a continent. So comparing those two, I think it's like, all right, these guys that, when you get the guys to buy in and really care, And maybe they did care at the last Olympics, and maybe I just didn't get the feeling that they did. But this Olympics, you really could tell that these players really had an incredible experience.
Well, it's such a tough one, and it's interesting you bring up different formats too, because I feel like it is when it's good, like today good, you're like, don't roll that exact same thing back out. That was I want to watch that again and again and again. But when it's bad, it's it's kind of like, why am I supposed to care about this? And I think that it's interesting because I look over like track and field, and you see runners and athletes that can do multiple events. You have men who are running in the 100 meter and the 200 meter, and they're running in relays, but they're also running like mixed relays. And it's hard to have that equivalent of like, hey, we'll do a men's individual stroke play, but we'll also do a mixed team event that feels like the Ryder Cup with men and women, and then we're also going to have the women's competition. It's just, you can only ask them to do one thing unless you want to shrink the length of each of those competitions. I would love to see a mixed competition at the Olympics simply because we don't see that anywhere else. And I also feel like there's just that element at the Olympics where if you are playing for your country, shouldn't that kind of feel more like a team thing? Like where you're all kind of waving the flag together and you have someone alongside. I mean, it's amazing as an American to see Scottie Scheffler on the podium, clearly overwhelmed with emotion for doing something for his country. But it's also, it's a little bit like, we see Scottie Scheffler win all the time on tour, and that's largely just Scottie Scheffler up there winning. So I don't know. I mean, because that's maybe more of what I would have said entering the week, but then I watched what I watched today and I was like, yes, more of that, please. Like, I would rather have that a million times over. To me, I thought the coolest part, and it's a shame that Victor Perez didn't end up on the medal stand. Yeah. Because just seeing the French support and that hard charge on the back nine and just him coming so close, that to me was one of the coolest parts of this competition.
We picked two French players at the beginning of the week. And
how'd yours do?
I took Matthew Pavone thinking like, you know what? That's the guy that we've been talking about this year. And you're like, oh, I'll take Victor Perez. And of course, Victor Perez went absolute psycho on the back nine. He was 6 under on a 5-hole stretch from, I believe it was 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16, and just gave himself an opportunity. Came up one shot short. But Scottie was actually talking, he was saying in the press conference that a bunch of the players were talking that Victor Perez and like Matthew Pavone were getting Tiger-like treatments this week. As far as the crowd, they really felt the presence of just, a country getting behind a player, which, Tiger had that support everywhere he went, but that's what they said it looked and felt like. So huge props, by the way, to all the people that showed up to make this a really cool venue and make it really sing on TV, because you could really feel the energy from the crowd. Just epic day. But the one thing that I think you and I should talk about when it comes to Olympics golf, and now that there seems to be that the players care, that the media seems to have a more of an interest in it and feels like it can be something really big. But what we talked about this a little bit in the lead up, and that this golf tournament from a official world golf ranking standpoint was getting 50 points. And if you look at the official world golf ranking 50 points list on an event that's comparable to that, you look at like Valspar. When I say 50 points to the winner, Valspar is also similar to that. And if you go and just glance at the Valspar leaderboard, and then you look at the leaderboard here at the Olympics, they're not the same. So we've got to either find a way to elevate the Olympics to where it's in the same category as signature events, because I just don't see how that what we just watched wasn't at the top echelon of what I feel like professional golf is, which they should be rewarded with rankings if they're going to rank and give player world ranking points for this.
Hopefully they learned their lesson. Hey, this ain't the NBA, bro. You don't have 6 fouls, and they will check you on this stuff. And Brooks has a reputation coming into this. You can tell the refs are watching him, and they were on him all the time.
This was 10, 12 years ago. Canada playing Greece with that type of lead that they had. They probably would have mentally crumbled and lost that game to Greece by 3 or 4 points in the final minute of that ball game.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Try and set the stage for what should be a great year of NFL action.
There's a handful of teams that potentially can compete for a Super Bowl championship.
Confusion and uncertainty this year more than some in the past.
This team looks like it's ready to make a move, but we just don't know if it's bad or good this year.
J.J. McCarthy is eventually going to take over, but it's a no-lose situation for them.
I mean, they suck. They were 7-10.
Only on SportsGrid.
That race for the Cy Young, pretty much as equally compelling and intriguing as the race for the wild card spots in the National League.
And also keep in mind, this team doesn't pitch the entire season, so his ERA gets affected much, much more if he has a poor outing than, let's just say, Chris Sale or Zach Wheeler that's been there all season long. This would be a fun one to watch it play out, but the big loser last night were the Phillies and Zach Wheeler.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Their coach has a personality that is New York City. Tough, grinding, defensive, no holds barred. We muck this game up and we make you play it our way. And Tibbs has been rewarded, and he should be rewarded for what he's done with the Knicks.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
It's so strange to sit here and have so many conversations about live events with 48 plus players or whatever, wherever they're at now, 52, and talk about how, you know, these signature events, they're too small. We want them to go like 100 players, and then to look at a field like this week, which I think was like 60 to enter the week, and I think maybe 2 guys withdrew. I might have the numbers a little bit off there, but you know, not a huge field at all. And say yes, give that more points. Again, I think it's, to a certain degree, like I'll put my hand up and say I'm a little bit of a prisoner of the moment because all the cream rose to the top and the best guys showed up. And so winning today's event was a massive, massive achievement. I think there's got to be a happy medium there. It's got to be more than 50 points to the winner. I don't know how many points it is, and I don't know if it's like where it lands against against a major, against a signature event. It's tough to say, but it definitely, if you have more, and I think what's going to happen too is they're going to kind of springboard off of what we just saw today and really kind of make some changes and adjustments as we kind of, head to the next Summer Olympics, because I think that, this thing started in Brazil in 2016 was the first iteration of this thing. Then you had Tokyo was supposed to be in 2020, then ended up being in 2021. So this is like the third time in. I mean, if I remember correctly, back in Brazil, the same guy, Rory, who was, talking after this event about what an amazing experience this was like poo-pooing the idea of playing in Brazil. It's like, this is a fabricated thing.
Well, I think it was the Zika virus. You remember that?
Exactly.
All the guys that were like thinking about having kids were like worried.
Totally.
I remember that.
And it's and I don't blame him for it at all. Like if any, it was funny. I was sitting watching the final round today with my wife, and Amanda was like, "So do guys care about this? What's the significance of this event?" And it's so strange because it doesn't really have any history. And I also want to get into the venue itself, Le Golf National, but different than any other golf event we watch, it's not like venue selection is a huge part of it. It's basically like, hey, this is the host nation. Let's look in the greater area and try to find the best course we can find in that area. A lot of times you get good options, and I think this was a very good one, but it's not like the venue is this key central piece. It's like, we're going to Paris regardless. We're going to Tokyo regardless. Let's find something there. In Brazil, they had to have Gil Hanse come down and build a bunch of courses. So to me, it's like, it's not history. It's not venue. I think the thing about it that probably makes it cool is a lot of these kids grew up and they were athletes. And they played a lot of different sports, and they undoubtedly were at home watching the Olympics every year and seeing how cool it was for those athletes in those sports to win a medal and represent their country. And so for these guys now, they're more and more coming around to the idea of, man, it'd be so cool to stand up wearing USA colors on that podium with a gold medal around my neck. And boy, do we see that today with Scottie Scheffler.
And that's you make a great point too, talking about Brazil and just the start that it got, because the golf course, like you mentioned, Gil Hanse comes down and builds some courses, and it didn't look good on TV. The fans weren't out there supporting it quite as much. And then fast forward, we already talked about Tokyo. It's a year after, it doesn't have the same buzz. It's a limited type of fan experience. I'm sure it was a great golf course, but now this year you finally had venue, fans, and then buy-in from players. And that's why it was, I think, so successful.
Yeah. And I think I'd love to get your thoughts on Le Golf National, because I think I saw Tron Carter tweeting about this, who has been more than vocal about his distaste for Valhalla, and he's certainly entitled to his own opinion. And I think he has some fair criticisms there, but Scottie wins at 19. Xander won the PGA Championship at 21. You can look at that leaderboard and say, what's the difference? I thought there was and we already kind of touched a little bit on it in this earlier in the conversation, but just what did you like about this venue? Like, to me, I thought there was a great risk reward.
Okay.
I thought that it was just, the whole thing was very interesting, even if it wasn't a storied venue or a classic venue. I thought it was it's set up perfectly for dramatic golf, which is what you want in an event like this.
You give guys soft fairways, you give them soft greens, and you give them no wind. It doesn't matter where they're going to play; they're going to take it deep. If you want to play the compare and contrast game with Valhalla and Le Golf National, which I don't think is they're just so different, right? You got a golf course that one has all the risk reward, reminds me much more like a Players Championship, where you have to sit up on you just can't take a shot off. Where at Valhalla, you felt like you could take shots off and get away with some. Not to say that it's not a hard golf course, because I think for most people it would be a difficult golf course, but the way it played that week with all the rain they got at Valhalla, it was, there's not a ton of slopes around the greens of Valhalla. So there's nothing about that golf course that I felt like was going to make it play firm enough to really challenge the players. But let's say it had Bermuda greens and it was firm. Maybe we're talking a little differently about Valhalla, but the way it's set up, for the PGA this year, they got some rain, it felt like it just came down to, who could hit a 7-iron the best. And it seemed like Xander was the best at that.
Without a doubt. Well, I think that, obviously a smashing success, a few items worth getting in the notes. I think you and I both said in our individual contributions to our shared note, props to Wyndham Clark, who kind of got roasted on the way in and then played that rough first round for making this team above Bryson or any number of other Americans that people would have liked to see there better. And then went out and played a very solid final 3 rounds, including on Sunday, to kind of, put himself in and around it. So props to you, Wyndham.
Yes, 100%. And I think a lot of people forget how well he played from the U.S. Open last year at LACC to, it was probably through, it was, I guess, Players Championship. Let's put the halt on it there. Like that stretch that he played, it was some damn good golf. And every time I kept watching him, he just kept reminding me of Brooks. Just the way that he was carrying himself, how confident he was with himself and with the media, whether that was right or wrong. He said what was on his mind, and that's kind of what reminded me of Brooks. And then just how he was playing too, just playing fades and just playing his golf, which was, I tell you, when he had it going, when he drives it well, my gosh, because he's got low 190s ball speed. I think people are talking like him, like he's not an elite player. He is. He's just had a tough second half of the year with his golf swing. You've seen bits and pieces of really hot rounds. He saw it on Sunday at the Scottish Open. So there is some good golf in Wyndham. I think maybe through the playoffs, he's a guy that I got my eye on for one particular week coming up. Yeah, props to Wyndham. He definitely didn't deserve all the criticism. The whole system with the world ranking and how it is, and these live players not getting points, and that's a whole nother debate that we can get into if you want. But I think Wyndham undoubtedly earned his spot the way the system's set up, and I thought he represented his country well. Maybe not the first 18 holes, but the last 54 holes really well.
recently, I feel like I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not making bad swings. I don't feel like I'm making terrible decisions, and just had got a little bit of a streak of bad luck on par fives. Didn't birdie any of them at the Open, didn't birdie any of them today. It's just, and I didn't feel like I did anything terribly wrong, right? But that's just golf. It happens. What's done is done, and this week is the most important week of the year right now.
If he lands it pin high, he's going to be off over the pin position and leave himself a tough putt there. That should bite now. He didn't like it by the looks of it, but he'll love it when he sees it.
Just get this before that bunker. Put himself in a good position.
Just a tiny little baby fade, ideally placed.
To tie the lead at 16.
Oh, he's playing well, isn't he, John Rahm?
And OMG, what a championship Sunday we just witnessed.
Win, right? Selfishly, you always want to get that done, but you don't want to see a teammate and a good friend, missing a putt for that happening for me.
The Live Golf League delivers every single event, doesn't it? I mean, what an incredible finish there. You know what, Tyrrell Hatton, I feel for him. He's been playing beautiful golf. In fact, since Miami, he's been the best player in our league based on the strokes gained metric.
I'm really happy that I had my first Live Golf win. Now that Kelly and the kids are watching, just knowing that I'm bringing the trophy home for them, it feels good to say that it's coming home.
I loved the Victor Perez heater on Sunday. I mean, mainly because he was my Frenchman. God. I was like, let's go. But I mean, I think I want more Victor Perez in my life. He was, I might be mistaken, but I think he was one of those guys that earned their tour cards through the DP World Tour last year. Mm-hmm. And has had a very solid year. And in fact, this is probably
where's he at in the FedEx Cup?
This is look at how seamless of a segue that we're doing right now. We're segueing right into our discussion about the precursor, the finale of the regular season as we head into the FedEx Cup, which is the Wyndham Championship. And so I sent over a list of some guys that are just outside the top 70, because if we remember last year, we were talking about Justin Thomas. We were talking about Adam Scott. We were talking about Shane Lowry that had to kind of play well to make their way in. And so this year, the list of guys I'm looking at are Victor Perez sitting at 71st. You got to think, I would assume if he's I need to look at a Wyndham field list, which I have not done yet, to be fair. But I mean, I'd assume that a guy that is sitting right there is going to play the Wyndham in an effort to make it in and capitalizing on his momentum of playing well in that final round of the Olympics. Davis Riley at 72nd, which is like, this guy won this year and is still 72nd. That's kind of an interesting sort of scene. Andrew Putnam at 73. Andrew and Lucas Glover at 76 are two that I find interesting as guys who were in the playoff last year, in signature events this year, who are still on the outside looking in. Keith Mitchell at 79. I think it's an interesting one because he's a guy that did not have the benefit of signature events. So, I don't know if there's any thoughts you have on any of those guys, or maybe some guys that are inside the top 70 that you're really keeping an eye on this week, to see that final movement of guys that are going to make it in the FedEx Cup. And then, obviously there's a cut to get in, and then there's the all important, play at the FedEx St. Jude to see who can get in that top 50 category to make their way into 2025 signature events.
Well, of the names that you just mentioned, I think the one that I'm probably going to be focusing, watching to see how he plays the most is who you have mentioned at 79. I think Keith Mitchell is probably the most interesting one because he hasn't had a bad year. He's actually played pretty well, just hasn't quite had enough high finishes to get enough points. But he's a guy that if you listen to the last couple episodes, we really dove into the FedEx Cup distribution points list and how, being in signature events, just being in those events, how important it is to earn your points in those. And for guys that aren't and haven't been in them like Keith, he's actually played pretty well this year. He's just, he's not playing in events that are giving enough points away, and you could see it in his stats. You can see it in his strokes gained overall. He's in the, he's a top 15 type of player in that category. So that's got to be frustrating as a player, knowing that, man, I just didn't quite get enough bats in these big events to go out at a Pebble Beach in the past in which he's played well and go finish top 10 that week and basically lock yourself up in the top 70. All it takes is 1 week with a good year like he's had, and he just hadn't had the opportunity. So that's the one player I want to see. It's like, can you go out, even though I'm sure you're mad and frustrated as hell with the system, and go out and finish top 5 here this week at the Wyndham, play yourself in the top 70, and then go play well at St. Jude, play yourself in the top 50. Next thing you know, you're in the signature event. So you can always play yourself into a different category by just putting the tee in the ground and going and doing it. But I feel like Keith is in that category of guys of being like, God, man, just I needed some more bats.
Another guy on the official list that I was looking at that I want to bring up at 96, Tyrrell Hatton. We know he's a great fit at Bay Hill. I'm just wondering how you think his game fits Sedgefield.
Dude, I would absolutely pick him this week and 1 and done if Tyrrell Hatton was there. Oh my God, it would be such a great fit. It's an auto top 10.
A lot of people saying top 10 lock at Sedgefield. 96 is a long way to go to 70, but anything could happen.
God, I hope we have enough listeners that have been on the ride with us in all of our episodes to know that Tyrrell Hatton, that we picked him to play like that week, and like, oh wait, he's not even on. He's on Live. Like, what are we doing?
And Smylie, do you have any final thoughts before we close this thing out? USA.
That's it, baby. USA. Come on, Scotty. Way to bring it home.
USA. Very good. Very good. Well,
actually, final thought.
Okay.
The 6 biggest events, Americans won.
Oh, how about that? You're talking about six biggest events in golf, or the 6 biggest events in the Olympics?
No, in golf.
That's right. 4 majors, players in the Olympics.
Yeah.
And the Shriners. Who won the Shriners this year?
We don't know yet.
That's right. It's in the fall. Stay tuned. The 7th event.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I guess look out for some Wyndham 1 and done picks for us on social media, and for another guest dropping the feed soon.
Yeah.
And with that said, thanks so much for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you very, very soon.